So, many thanks. We'll leave the floor to the first speaker of the proposition.
So, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are debating about the motion that says the necessary cost for the transition to a circular economy must be fully borne by companies without being passed on to consumers. I'm going to explain why we truly believe so. First of all, I would like to give some context. We live in a world in which climate change is something extremely important and urgent. To solve this, we have maneuvers nowadays that doesn't work. We are at a no-return point, and companies are the biggest polluters, producers of negative externalities. So they hardly would translate to a circular economy, because if you spend more of the cost of the things that you sell, it will consequentially rise the price. So people that are not economically educated and in advantageous situations are going to suffer about that, and people wouldn't believe in the product anymore. This is why it's important to have responsible consumers. And also it's necessary to present the advantageous side of actually transiting to a circular economy. First of all, what is a circular economy? It's an economic system based on reuse and regeneration of materials or products, especially as means of continuing production in a sustainable or environmentally friendly way. And we are going to talk about companies and consumers, as companies that are the ones that produce for consumers, and consumers are the ones that buy the products. So if consumers do not buy from the companies, they will fail. So there is a really strong relationship between these two main economic indicators. So there is a proportion. Yes?
Do you think the companies will also pay all the cost of the transition on their shoulders?
Thank you for your QI. I'm going to answer that with the model of what our team is presenting to you. So part of the cost that would be financed by the state with part of the funds that already exist for the ecological transition. So the money will go back to the state through a taxation, and we predict an increase of wealth of companies. So actually, we are going to support the companies to make this translation through the use of the funds that already exist and for the translation in this way. We are going to support that with 3 main arguments. We are going to highlight our team line, that is. We will support our position in favor of the motion, as it's not totally, as today is not effective, while we present you a change for the consumer habits and a lead to environmental benefits. So we will demonstrate that with 3 arguments. First of all, as I said, today's way of approaching the situation is not working. It is not changing things. And I'm going to take care of that and explain that later. While the second speaker will talk about how the consumer's habits will change, and then why there will be benefits, talking about the environmental side and changing the bad situation that we are now. That, as I said, is very, very urgent. So, going back to my argument, that is going to show you why today's approach to the matter is not effective. So we are not in a utopistic world. We know that increasing the cost of a good is going to increase the price of for the consumers without any helping. While we are presenting you actually these funds that already exist for a transition, that are going to be seen as loans. They will go back to the state thanks to the taxation and the general increase of production and yes, the general wealth of companies. So it's just a loan to help the companies to translate in this direction. So why, as I said, today we are not moving in the right directions, because companies does not find positive to change their investment in that direction. Because as I said, making companies without health or sustainability pay for the transition is going to affect consumers with the increase of productions. While with help and support that is going to go back again to the funds of the state, is going to make it possible, because we are realistic and representing a world in which this translation happens because of advantages for everyone, advantages for the companies, advantages for the producers, and advantages in the end for the environment, so for the people in general. As I said, we are analyzing why we are not making any progresses in these directions. And this is because our system is not think and thought about making the circular economy a main point, while it is a main point in our view. Because with the circular economy, that nowadays is expensive, we can actually solve the environmental problems. Because making the circular economy, as I said, it's just the reuse and regeneration of materials or products in the means of continuing production to a sustainable way. So this circular economy is going to actually help the environment. It's going to be positive for the companies because they will see help sustainable. Yes?
But don't you think that companies will start the transition at all if the cost is fully on them?
Thank you. I answered that in a model. I'm going to repeat. It's not going to be directly on the moment on them. It's going to be sustained with the funds that already exist for the transition to a transition economy. So using the funds, we are going to actually having the starting points for companies. They are going to see an increase of so they are going to have a change in their production, but they are going to be sustained by the state. And the state is not going to see this as a loss, because it would return, as I said, through taxation and to general wealth and increase of production. So we present you a world in which today's responses to the urgent situation of climate change are not enough. While our proposal is going to drastically change the way we see sustainability. It's not just something far and impossible to apply, but it's something very concrete that can be helping companies, consumers, and the whole world through a circular economy, and so will help the environment and the earth. Thank you everybody for your attention.
Thank you. Thanks, Alessandra. We now leave the floor to Dakota for the first speech of the opposition team.
The speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dakota, and I'm the first speaker of the opposition team opposing today's motion, which has a key in this. The necessary costs for the transition to a circular economy must be fully borne by companies without being passed on to consumers. Before proceeding to my speech, I would like to rebut some of the things that have been said by the first speaker of the opposition team. In the first place, they say that their model will be based on the use of funds coming from the states. Yes, but a fund is only temporary, and a fund would be extremely difficult to be extended on a global scale. And what we're searching for today is a global solution, because the problem, as they stated, is now and is large. And that's why we have to solve it in an efficient and a global way. To prevent an interruption of the transition, which would happen with their model, it is necessary to introduce a system which involves actively both parties, both companies and consumers, to change things in a minute. If there is no cooperation, things that happens in their model, there will be no evolution of the economy, because I remember economy is based on cooperating. It's a chain of events that goes from the producer to the consumer, and from the consumer to the producer. They are strongly linked. Yes?
Are we saying that this is applicable to each one of the states?
Yeah, but it is not a given fact that each state has a fund. Where are we going to take a fund from each state? Is each state able of giving this fund for this transition? We have no guarantee that it would be like that. I will now proceed in what is my speech by bringing some definitions that will come in handy later in my argumentation. In the first place, economy. The context of human activities concerned with production, distribution, consumption of goods and services. With fully, we mean something that is totally, entirely. With consumer, we mean a person who acquires goods, and with companies, a business enterprise that provides those goods. And with this, we understand from the beginning, from the definition of companies and consumers, that these two are strongly linked and must be in cooperation. As the other team did, we have a little bit of context as an introduction. We already know that today the environmental situation is critical. Global warming, pollution, environmental disasters, the action is required now, is urgent, and we need to act with all the means possible. One of these means is, in fact, circular economy, which promotes with its system a sustainable and environmental friendly economy. Obviously, the transition to circular economy requires necessary costs, as it's also stated in the motion. How do we provide for these costs, which are about recycling, renewable energy, reducing waste, and other lots? The proposition team intends to put all the weight of this cost on the shoulders of the companies. The impact of this weight will only fall on them and would affect negatively the entirety of economy. In fact, no thanks. We believe that this system is not possible and not efficient, both for the fund and both because it is based on a one-sided way. The weight only goes on the shoulders of companies, and the cost this way would be too much for them. Not only the companies would be affected negatively and would be at loss, but also the consumers and the environment, because we wouldn't be able to actually have a transition that can sign a difference and that can bring circular economy, which is urgent and needed now, because we're talking about a problem that is actual and must be solved, because we live on a planet and it's only one, and that's why it must be protected. No thanks. Our model, because we present the counter model to theirs, we believe that we must then, at least a little, put the cost of this transition on the consumer. We impose a limit, which is fundamental. This limit is possible thanks to the existence of our model, because it's based on balance. The limit would be imposed by each government, just like there are limits on the percentage of the price of whatever product is made. Just like now there are percentage for production, for raw materials, for stereo tax, there will be a percentage specifically created for the cost of this transition. Moving on, I would like to present all values and the values which our team line is based on. These are the cooperation and awareness, points that will be deeper explained by myself in the first point, which is balance and awareness are the key to transition. The second point is there is no start if it creates a huge loss. And the third point, which is, according to the motion, the transition would be slow and ineffective. Without further ado, I would like to start the first argumentation, which is, balance and awareness are the key to the transition. As I stated before, it's a fundamental term, fully, because we have the weight of this cost fully borne by companies. It's basically like overworking someone. Such costs cannot be no fix. Such costs cannot be borne by a single entity in a system based on a chain of events, which has definition for economy, production, distribution, and consumption, which involve all the people in this chain, from the producer to the one who buys, to the consumer. So, it can't be fully borne by companies, but the cost must be passed on the consumer. And this is simply a consequence of being part of this chain, because consumers are part of the chain of economy. It's giving and taking, receiving something in return. And this will only make us aware of the change and the transition we need right now, because we are part of this transition. We have to imagine this transition just like a balance, and a balance scale, a weighting scale. And to be on balance, to be stable, the transition has to be based on a cooperation. It must be based on a balance, a cost divided between companies and consumers. And this is the only way to make the transition efficient, permanent, and something that will sincerely and pragmatically create what is a transition that will last in time, that will have a long-term effect in time. And this is the only way to promote what is a true transition to save our planet. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. 7 minutes. Now give the floor to Benedetta for the second speech of the opposition.
I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Dear judges, opposition team, good morning everybody. Today we're debating about the motion. The necessary costs and the decision for transition to a circular economy must be fully borne by companies without being passed on to consumers. I'd like to start my speech by refuting and rebutting what the other team has told us. So, first of all, we propose you a model. In order to attack our model, the other team has brought the fact that the funds are temporary and inapplicable on a global scale. But first of all, in our model, we have proposed you a system in which the funds goes to the companies. The companies produce. This production that is greener brings to an increase of the production of green products. These green products will be bought by the population, so the production will increase, and the taxation from this production will go directly to the states. So the states is just giving money that will receive back. And the people so will buy more, because we have the production of greener products with the same cost. Then, talking about the fact that on a global scale, we are talking about the states. We have made our model in a state scale, in which these companies exist. So you said that the collaboration is, the evolution is allowed only with collaboration. But how we are demonstrating you through an economic law that the collaboration with the consumers won't be achieved with giving them the cost of polluting the items. For example, if the cost of a product increases because the companies makes a transition, so the cost of production increases, the price of the product will increase. It is an economic law. If the price increases, the demand will decrease. So then you brought as a model the imposition of limits made by each government. First of all, the limits, if you pollute in a way, no, thank you. The amount of pollution cannot, there is a minimum of increase of price. But most importantly, you didn't consider the problem of delocalization. If me, as a producer, produce in a country that puts a high, high minimum of this production, or a high limit of this cost that has to be added to the price, then we'll delocalize. And then I will go in another countries in which these conditions are different, and allow me to put a lower cost of a lower increase of the cost in my product. Then, as the first argumentation, they brought the fact that balance and awareness are the key to transition. But again, and that the consumers are a part of the chain economy. Because of this, again, we demonstrate you that if we want to achieve the production of more greener products, then the cost of this transition does not have to go upon the consumers, because the consumers will, according to the economic situation, will shift to products who are not produced in a sustainable way, but have a lower price. Now, moving on to my two main argumentations. First of all, I will demonstrate you how, with our model, the consumers will change their consuming habits. So in our world, we recognize that only rich people, only people with high income, with money, can make sustainable choices once going to the market. This brings to social injustice, because the population is split between the ones who can afford being sustainable and the ones who cannot. So the solution of climate change in this term is not global, and only affects a part of our society. This because, as I said before, only rich people can allow themselves high products with a higher cost. For example, we have seen the transition in the last years of plastic products to a more sustainable one and biodegradable one. But their prices have increased. So people who can afford them went buying those products. People who could not afford, they continued buying plastic products. So the solution to the problem wasn't resolved. With our model in the future, people will have a better and more aware consumption of will be more aware of what they are buying. And it is also in favor of the Agenda 2030 to have goal responsible consumption. So people will have the possibility from whatever their social class is to have the possibility to make greener choices that can be made so by everyone. Then, moving on to my third argument. We believe that in our model we can really resolve the problem with the environment, and in our system environmental benefits would be created. So, as we said before, the circular economy reuse and generate materials or produce, aiming to continue production in a more sustainable and environmentally friendly way. In the actual situation, we have seen that the current system do not bring to the decrease of the pollution of the environment from companies, because the demand of the population is not the same. Do not allow companies to have an ecological transition. So, with our model, we will have a sustainable production in a circular economy that can be achieved, because environmentally friendly products will increase their production, because their cost won't vary. So people will be more aware of what they're buying. What does it bring to the environment? We have spent many years in our world making international conventions in order to achieve goals that could really reduce the pollution of the environment. With our model, we have the solution of this problem. With our model, we have environmental benefits, because we have the meeting of the economic and human needs to the environmental ones. So, increasing the production of environmentally friendly products, the environment will surely benefit from it, meeting all the needs and all the necessary that the population has in this nowadays critical situation. As a resume, we believe that our model is more sustainable and more efficient than the current situation because, first of all, the consumers will have will be more aware of their habits and will increase them to a more sustainable path. And then we will really provide to our world an environmental benefits. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Benedetta, and we refer to Alexia for the second speech of the opposition team.
My speech is going to start in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges, opposition team, here at Assembly, good morning. My name is Amar Delessi, and today I'm going to speak as the second speaker of the opposition team for the motion proposed before by Akada and first speaker of the opposition house. Before to analyze the 2 minutes argumentation of my speech, I just want to review something which was said by the first and second speaker of the proposition team, and I want to review the model that they present. First of all, we have to say that according to them, we should use money which comes from the national member, and they are made in order to make the transition and sustainability easier. But as the Akada said in her speech, we have a lot of problems. First of all, we have to say that these money are going to end, and secondly, we have to say that it could be a problem if we want to use this money on a global scale. And I'm going to review all these points. Let's start about the thing that money are going to end. In fact, the money for the transition will end, all this fund will end, but the cost of the transition will still be too high. And companies, yes.
Didn't we say that we come back with full taxation of companies?
Thank you so much for your question, but the problem is still the same. The cost is too high. We don't have enough money, and in a global scale, we could have enough money. Money are going to end, cost is going to be the same. But thank you so much for your question. Secondly, we have the global problem. We will have problems to distribute this money in the whole world because we are talking about some different type of economic system, and it could be very difficult because all the countries have a different type of economic system, and they didn't propose any type of supranational member which has to understand, which has to choose how we should distribute this type of money, so we can be sure that the distribution of money in order to help the countries will be the same and will work in the whole world. And if we want to help our environment, we have to be sure that the distribution of money is going to help, is going to work in the whole world, and we can be sure if we approve the right model. In plus, the problem is not a critical one. We have to consider even the problem from an economic point of view. In fact, I want to remember that my house, the opposition one, is based on the cooperation. With their model, consumers and producers are not going to cooperate, and according to us, if we don't have a cooperation, the economic system is not able to improve itself. For this reason, it's important that the producers and the consumers should cooperate according to their economic responsibility. No, thank you. And thus, I want to analyze something which was said by the second speaker of the proposition team. She talked about the problem linked to the localization of product. But I want to justify this point reviewing our model. In fact, as the Akada said in our speech, we want to put a limit of price on the product. So we have to obtain the data of product, and we will be able to localize the product. So this problem that the proposition team is trying to remove for the reality doesn't exist. And plus, I want to review the first argumentation of the first speaker of the proposition team. She talked about the less income people. So people will not be able to, for them, so not everyone, are not going to be able to sustain the support to the producers. And that's right, but as the Akada said in her speech, and as our model wants to do, we are going to request a support to the consumers linked to their economic disponibility. So according to them, to economic disponibility. In plus, if we want to talk about income, we should consider even the income of societies. We have a lot of companies which don't have enough money to sustain this type of transition. So income is a common problem. But according to our model, if we cooperate, if producers and consumers cooperate, we are able to solve this problem. Another time, the impact on our model is very good because we want cooperation and we are going to improve everything and we are able to justify all this point. Their model is not good because it's based on money which are going to end and we can sustain the spreadness of this money on a global scale. But now I want to start with the two main orientation of my speech. The first point is there is no start with a huge cost. First of all, we have to say that the society should take care of the environment. On a different way, if we talk about companies, we are considering private organization. Private organization work with people because they want their money. They have to produce something and they want money from people, but they don't work for people. So they don't take care of the environment because before to be people, they are producers. So their only purpose is to obtain money and they are going to use all types of energy which are not sustainable for our environment to obtain money. So if we are going to increase the cost of production, because I want to remember that their money can justify this point, if we are going to increase the cost of production for the society are not going to follow this point because for them there's no advantage. And to support my point, I just want to quote some data which comes from the risk, one of the most important companies of energy. They calculate the average between the cost of green energy and energy based on fossil fuels. And they discovered that companies don't use green energy because they are too expensive. And this shows how companies don't work to protect the environment, but they only work to obtain money. And if we are going to increase the cost of production, they are not going to help our environment. They are not going to start this evolution because there is no advantage for them. And for this reason, their model is not able to help our environment. Second point is going to be obviously linked to the cost of production. In fact, we have to say that the problem of their model is that the cost of production is only based on the product, and is obviously a big point, and they are not able to justify that because all the money that they are producing are not able to solve the problem even on a global scale. In fact, yes.
Don't you think that you need the same money to repay low-income civic consumers?
Thank you so much. That's the point. With our model, we are going to split the cost. One part is going to be linked to consumers, obviously according to their economic disponibility. The other part is going to be linked to the producers. And if we have a cooperation, if we put together this money, we are going to walk into a rainbow society. So this economic process could be very slow because if we increase the cost of the production, obviously society needs money to pay this cost. And obtain money is something which is not fast, is something of too slow, and we need a solution for climate change which has to act right now in this moment. And if we increase the cost of the production, companies don't know where they have to take money, and the process to help our environment will be slow. And to support my point, I just want to make an analogy. If we have a horse which wants to trade a carriage which two people sit in her, if we have an elephant on this carriage, we will reduce the speed and we will arrive on late on the place. So we will arrive on late to sustainable environment, and we need a solution now. And without their model, we are not able to find a solution which has to act now for the environment problem. So I went to revisit everything that was said by me in my speech. I talked about the high cost of society and how this process is too low. Thank you so much for your listening.
So many thanks. Let's now leave the floor to break out for the speech position.
Okay, my speech is going to start in 3, 2, 1. Dear judges, dear audience, opposition team, I would like to start my speech by refuting what the other team has said, and then by revealing the position of my team. First of all, I'd like to say that we are thinking on a national scale. We are talking about states. We are not the world. First of all, I'd like to say that the opposition team has presented the urgency of the situations in which we are here. But they also said, they also didn't take into account that consumers will be discouraged buying the products that will have a higher price if the cost for the transition to a circular economy will also weigh on them. Then they said that the funds are temporary, but we explained that the money will return to the state. If the money returns to the state because the production of the company increases, because the cost of because people will be pushed to buy sustainable products at the same cost as before, the taxation will be higher for companies, so money will return, and they would use them to create other funds. Then we also said that the companies won't weigh all these alone, because they will be eased by the state. Why? Because we are not idle, right? As you think that the consumer will just accept to pay more for products. They will just see an increase in the price and they will buy something else. No, thank you. And the company will just fail. But we're not hypocrite. We know that companies wouldn't accept if the cost were on them at all, alone. So we said, in order to solve, yes.
Do you know that we want to put a limit on price in order to make consumers part of this process?
Obviously, I know that, but first of all, why should a consumer pay more for a product if there is another that is cheaper? And second of all, I'll also show you that your model has some logical mistakes. And then, continuing, we said that our position basically explains that with our model we show that companies will be easier to apply the transition and thus more efficient. And they won't be alone but helped by the state. And we will attain balance as taxation to repay the state would be balanced by increasing of production because it's more convenient to consumers. Then they proposed a model, but this model for that poses a minimum base for that a consumer had to pay for the transition of the company has actually some problems, because if the government puts a too high cost to be paid by the consumer, this could be not productive because consumers would be discouraged by buying these products from the company, and so the company will simply change country. But if it is too low, then companies won't accept it, as it would result in them having all the weight of the cost. Then they also said that money will end. And we explained also this through the system of taxation. And actually, it's not really clear what this cooperation between companies and consumers, how it should work, because we haven't established this money to the low-income consumers who will give them before was said to the state, then was said to the company will give a lower price to low-income consumers. The price of the products is the same for everyone, and then I'd like to rebuild the argumentations of my team, showing that our model is much more applicable and much more effective in order to answer all the problems that the opposition team, but also our team, have identified in this motion. Our model has shown that it wouldn't work if the consumer paid a higher price on the products for the ecological, for a transition. For the transition of a company on a circular economy, because yes, as the other team has said, we should think about all the states, but in all the states there are all different companies, and so companies, no, thank you. And for this reason, sorry, we shouldn't. Because you say that we have generalized, but you have to, because companies are not the same in all the states. And this is a problem, because we have economic interests that for many countries win. And so it will be ineffective. Because we are not hypocrites, we also said that consumers, with our model, habits would really change, while with their model, they will just buy even more the products from, they just won't buy the products from that company, because we have showed in the third argument that if the cost for the consumer is zero and for the company the cost is actually zero because the production increases, so even if they pay for the taxation to the state, they will still have a higher production, so balancing the company will accept actually to do this transition, it will be more effective, because it won't yes.
But do you think that nowadays consumer won't be part of the transition?
Obviously, I think that the consumer will be part of the transition by buying sustainable products. Because what is transition? Transition is shifting to a more ecological world. And if you, consumer, buy that product at zero cost, at a cost that hasn't changed from before. If you buy that product that is more sustainably produced by the company that has a circular economy, then obviously you're contributing to sustainability, you're contributing to the progress, but you're not paying the price of that, because people have, economic conditions of people are really different, and our model thinks about all the disequalities and brings justice together with environment, because it is the only way people and companies will accept to apply a sustainable transition, because as we have explained, this way the people and the companies would only benefit from it, and as you are not instead, the other team generalizes as all the product can vary on the basis of the income, while every citizen buys the same product. So we showed that their model is ineffective, inapplicable in the reality, and especially won't bring to that sustainability that the other team has brought, because we have showed you that sustainability and the transition will be reached in the critical context we are living just if consumers are pushed and companies are pushed to make this transition. And so on the one side, by applying this transition to a circular economy, and on the other hand, by buying that product. For this, I'm so glad to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
My speech is going to start in 3, 2, 1. To truly have a change, everyone must be part and aware of the process. Hello everyone, I'm Diana Quattromani, the third speaker of the Opposition House, and during my speech I'm going to confute the argumentation taken by the Proposition House, the Government House, and I'm going to summarize our team line. I want to start with a defense of our model. They say that companies will fail due to the increase of the cost of the products, and consumers wouldn't buy these products. But we have solved these problems. How we say there will be a limit on the increase of the cost, so the consumer will be protected, but still part of the chain to achieve an ecologically economy. The limit makes sure the price is raised in a way that it wouldn't create this big disaster they talk a lot about. So it will not be a disaster for the consumer because the limit will be set in equally for the customer. The limit will not be neither too high neither too low. It will be set based on the capacity of the economy of the country. Why? Because it is in the interest of all of the country, of the consumer, of the companies, of the government to make the economy works. Right now I want to start with my true computation. My first computation is different vision of the consumer. For the proposition, and I want to quote the first speaker, people who are not educated on the topic of a sustainable production wouldn't be part of it. So their answer to people unawareness is still unawareness. Our answer is, on the contrary, make people part of this economy, even if they have to pay a cost to cooperate, because economy is a balance. It is both companies and consumers. Yes.
And how do you make people buy products that have a higher cost?
Because what I say is that this higher cost is not that high. It is the right cost, it is the right limit. It's neither too high or neither too low. And why it is the right cost? Because it is in the interest of all. It is in the interest of the consumer, it is in the interest of the companies, and it is in the interest of the government to make the economy work. So I want to continue with my computation. Even if they have to pay a cost, even if people have to pay a cost, they will be part of this. Because economy, or we say, is a balance. Because every one of us is responsible of our economy, and every one of us must work for an eco-friendly economy. The key point is that without the cooperation of everyone, there won't be a real change, because economy is not a mirror with one face. Economy is a prism made by many parts, and both companies and consumers are part of this chain. Both are part of these prisms, and both have to be responsible for our economy. We all have to work for this transition. I want to continue my computation. The second one is that their role is utopic and inefficient, because even if companies have this fund, it will not work in a long-term way because a fund is, for definition, a reserve of money, so it's not infinite. Fund will end and the economy wouldn't be changed. In our model, the impact is not only in the present, but also in the future. Why? Because we are creating a market of cooperation to reach the goal of a circular economy. To reach this goal, we must be aware of it. People must be aware of it, and to be aware of it, they have to pay a cost, a little cost, but for this little cost, they will be aware of it, and they will be part of the chain.
Yeah.
And with the fund, how I say the fund will end, so it's not a long-term impact. In our world, we are creating a new market, an ecological market, and everyone is part of it. I want to start with my third computation, the fact that there is a model with no roots. Because in their model, people would buy from eco-friendly companies. But there is a problem. How we have demonstrated, if companies have an economic loss because fund end or because it doesn't arrive at all, they won't start the transition. The companies won't start the transition at all. So their model has no roots. The problem in your model is that you think that companies will start this transition, but if the money doesn't arrive, or if the money of the fund ends, this transition wouldn't start, and people wouldn't buy any ecological products, because there is no company that started this transition. So I want to summarize my computation. The first was the different vision of the consumer. For them, a consumer is just an individual external to this chain. For us, it's part of the chain. Even if he pays a cost, it's the cost for the responsibilities that every one of us have. The second computation was about their model, because their model is an utopic and inefficient vision, because we want to change the economy from inside, and to do it, we have to be, all of us, part of this process. And my third computation is was still about their model, and I have demonstrated their model has no roots, because if companies doesn't start this process, this process from the start, because they have no fund, or because this fund ends, or because this fund doesn't arrive, there will be be no real transition. So people wouldn't buy any products, any ecological products because the transition didn't start. Right now, I want to summarize our team line and to repeat our model. In our model, the cost won't be only on the shoulders of the companies, but will be a cooperation, will be shared between companies and consumers. But to avoid the possibility that companies increase too much the price of the products, there will be a limitation decided by the government. And why this limitation would be fair? Because it is in the interest of all. It's in the interest of the companies, it is in the interest of the consumer, and it is in the interest of the government to make the economy work, to make the economy go to an ecologically way. Our team line was based on three argumentation. The fact that economy is composed by both companies and industry and the customers. The fact that there is no start if we create a huge loss for companies, and the fact that if the price is fully on companies, the transition will be slow and inefficient. Because how we say the fund will end at a certain point, or the fund couldn't arrive at all, so the companies wouldn't start this transition at all. If we share the responsibilities, if we share this cost, this transition will be more efficient. This transition will be faster because the responsibilities, because the cost is shared. It's not only on the shoulders of someone. It's not only on the shoulders of one, but it's shared. Because how I said, economy is not a mirror with one face, but it's a chain. It's a chain made by everyone, and everyone should be responsible for it. We have to change economy from inside. And with this, I want to end my speech. 6 tantibus rebus. Things goes in that way. Our model is more efficient and is the best way to achieve the goal of an ecologically friendly economy. Thank you for the listening.
Thank you. 7 minutes forward. So we've reached so far the end of the positive speeches. We'll now give the floor to Dakota for the first reply of the decision team.
3, 2, 1. Good morning, everyone. It's me again, Dakota, and I'm the first speaker of the opposition team, and I will be now doing the reply for this debate. In the first place, I would like to thank everyone for paying attention for all this time, the judges and opposition team. I will now start by presenting a general vision of what has happened during this debate and what conclusions we have reached during our speeches. In the first place, we both agree that the situation is disastrous. We have to solve climate change problems, pollution, and all of the problems that are environmental matters. We totally agree on that. Both of us agree with that. But the system we proposed to use to solve these problems were different. And we believe that our system is far more efficient, fair, and pragmatic, while the opposition team's system is slow, doesn't act now, it's one-sided and ineffective. So I would like to present what have been 2 main points of clash we have encountered during this debate, which are about the models. We have debated often about how our models work, and about awareness, which is the value our team decided to hold throughout all of our speeches. And we've been clear with that. In the first place, let's talk about the propositions model, which seemed to us like an impossible model, which is based on a fund which would be which fairness wouldn't be guaranteed in any way, and that is why it doesn't result effective and definitive for the transition, as my team already stated many times throughout our consultations. And this wouldn't help the transition for a circular economy, which is something we need. While our model actually promotes what is an effective transition because our model provides a cooperation. It's based on a cooperation. It's not one-sided. It gives balance, just like a weighting scale. To have stability, both plates must hold the same weight. In this case, to be aware of the responsibility they hold in this process of transition. And it's fair because we have presented in our country model what is a system of limit, which would make possible to buy products without any problem because the limit is specifically made for that, to solve these types of problems. The value which we have debated on is awareness because it seemed to us that the proposition team opted for something that is cheaper, yes, but this wouldn't make them aware, wouldn't make them aware of the urgency of this matter. Their models doesn't favor a transition, and the consumers are not active part of this transition. As Viviana said, to truly make a difference, we must be aware and active part of the change. And that is what our model presented. In our model, we are aware of the transition because we are part of it. And we do this by sharing the cost in cooperation. Only this way will be effective. The economy is a chain. Each ring is part of it and is linked with the others. It goes the same for consumers, productions, and everything that goes in between. All of the process. So, I want to conclude my speech with a rhetorical question. Do we want to realize this transition or not? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. 2 minutes, 59. Thanks, Dakota. We're now leave the floor to Benedetta.
I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Dear judges, opposition team, thank you for the wonderful debate. Today we debated about the motion, necessary cost, and for the transition to a circular economy must be fully borne by companies without being passed on to consumers. I'm going to start this speech by summarizing what are the main points of clash that we found in this debate. First of all, the problem of sustainability, environmental issues. We find a common issue. We are to a non-returning point. The other team has brought as a solution to sustainability problems, they're achieving the sustainability by putting costs up in the price on the products. But we have demonstrated you that it is not achievable because as the economic law says, once the price increases, the demand will decrease. While on our side, sustainability will be ensured because we have zero cost for the consumer. On the other side, with the second point of clash, we found efficiency of the system. As we've seen, why should a company put with your model a limit to their products? And even if they did that, as we saw, the cost would still increase. Then, if this cost would affect companies, it would bring also to delocalization, and these are all issues that we cannot have. On the other side, our model will be efficient because we have zero cost on the producers. The state will give the money to the companies, and the companies will make this money return back through taxation because the production of sustainable products will obviously increase. Then cooperation. Cooperation, as you said, is the key to achieve our goals at the environmental levels. But the other team didn't bring us how collaboration must be done between consumers and producers. And while we proposed you a model in which the collaboration between the producers and consumers gives the consumers the possibility to buy the products at the same price, so to collaborate. Now let's analyze the two main words that would be created if we follow their path or our path. On the one side, we find a solution to a problem that is not really efficient. Indeed, the counter model won't have benefits on the population because the population will decrease the demand of the products made by the companies. So neither the companies will benefit from this model. The localization will be improved and social justice won't be ensured because only rich people will be able to buy products with a higher cost because they are sustainable. On the other side, we find our world in which a new system results in better consumption of habits of the population, as Agenda 2030 proposed. Everyone from whatever economic situation they are will be able to buy the products produced in a sustainable way by companies who join our model. Then the environment will benefit from it because if the price of environmentally friendly products do not increase, the demand will be the same, so people will still buy the products, so the impacts on the environment will only be a good one. Then the cost, as I said, for this environmental transition as a result will be zero. So we will see a benefit from from both the consumers and the companies. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.